All right, recording. What's up, guys? This is Andre or Chokinator, if you know me from my stream. I'm here with a couple friends. I've been telling people that I've been wanting to make a podcast called Getting Good, and obviously from the title alone, you probably know what it's about. But this is sort of the pre-podcast podcast, sort of a test run for how it's gonna go. And I invited my friends Cory and Ivan. I put in their little gamer tags there because that's how I know them. You know, we play Smash Bros together. But I invited them because Corey approached me. He said he wanted to tell me some stuff about podcasts, and Ivan listens to a lot of podcasts. So I'm gonna have Corey, you introduce yourself first, and like what you do. Like, do you listen to a lot of podcasts, or like what do you here for?
So I'm here under the initial premise of the idea of getting good. I do listen to a good amount of podcasts. I'm listening to Revisionist History right now from Malcolm Gladwell, I believe is his name. I really liked, God, I can't remember his name. I think he rebranded his podcast to ID10T or Idiot.
Mhm.
Um, oh man, what is his name? Chris Hardwick. Yeah, Chris Hardwick. I think he's got a pretty good podcast. Um, that's the extent of my podcast listening, though.
How often do you listen to those?
Lately, probably hour and a half to 2 hours a day.
Oh wow,
So I
that's
currently live in Merced, and I drive to Modesto for work. So it's about 50 minutes to an hour commute. So it's nice time to listen to a full episode of a podcast.
so you pretty much listen every day.
Yeah, recently, my buddy Matt Lostetter from UC Merced. He told me about revisionist history a couple weeks ago, and I've been listening to them every day since then. So I think I've been nonstop 2 weeks for him.
Hmm. And then Ivan, you said you listen to a bunch of podcasts too. Like, which ones do you listen to? Like, what is your experience with podcasts?
So my experience with podcasts, I guess I would say that I really started listening into podcasts the moment I actually tuned into the Adonyx podcast, and that's basically the podcast for Connor Murphy and Brandon Carter. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're like fitness YouTubers, and they're
Oh,
pretty big. They got like a pretty respectable subscribers.
hmm.
Sorry, my bad. A pretty respectable number of subscribers, but either way, they're just like really fun personalities. But once I started listening to them, I realized that not only was I tuning into podcasts more frequently, but I started listening to YouTube videos too in a podcast style.
Mm.
So there's also like the H3 podcast from, H3 on
Oh yeah.
YouTube. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would recognize that name. And then also through the Adonyx podcast, I also found the Jordan Harbinger show.
Hmm.
And, it's decent. I don't really like to listen to it all the time. Every now and then is good, but the Adonyx podcast I definitely tune into every week. And obviously, you got the Joe Rogan Experience. I
Dude, Joe
think,
Rogan's tight, man.
yeah, man, everyone knows Joe Rogan and
Yeah.
like his sick podcasting style. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much what I listen to. And I guess if I had to name one person in particular for that YouTube style podcasting service, I guess it would be Coach Red Pill. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Nah.
Okay, so Coach Red Pill is just like another dude that kind of, I guess you could say it's like Jordan Peterson in a way,
Oh,
where he
interesting.
kind of tends to give like a lot of life advice, particularly to younger males,
Hmm.
like, like from 15 to 30. That's like his audience. But yeah, a lot of his videos, they're, 30 minutes long, 10 to 30 minutes. So it's not like crazy long or anything. It's not the sweet spot of like the Joe Rogan Experience with like
Right.
1 hour, but it's good enough when you're driving and you need something to listen to.
Okay, so since you guys are talking about this, it made me think about a question I have for you guys. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about the experience I've had with podcasts. So I've only very recently gotten into them. A couple years ago, my fiance now, she introduced me to one called Serial. Have you guys heard of that? It's like a
No, I'm not.
it's like a crime mystery podcast. It was actually one of the first podcasts that like made podcasting big, like because it was
Mm,
just so well made, and it's this narrator, and she's talking about like this murder that happened, and this is a real story, and it's one that people like investigators never found the answer to, and it was just so compelling and enriching, and it was like really well, like high production quality, with good music and stuff like that. It felt like a radio, like a mystery murder radio show, but it was a podcast. Um, so ever since then, I've never listened to one of that quality, but ever since then, I've noticed like podcasts recently are more like conversational in nature, like the one we're doing now. Um, but my question to you guys is like, I feel like a lot of podcasts are dependent on the host, like I don't know, being interesting or engaging, because a lot of times the guests can be hit or miss. But I feel like with Joe Rogan in particular, he is the consistent factor to making the podcast good. You know what I'm saying?
No, I definitely agree. And you see, I definitely agree. Even with Joe Rogan, like, you know how you just basically said that he was a consistent factor in his podcast being great. I definitely agree because some of the guests he's had are pretty much a miss,
Uh-huh.
but he's just so engaging and like he has so much patience that it
Yeah.
doesn't even matter. Like he kind of plays off of them in a way too.
Hmm. What do
I
you
don't
think,
know what.
Corey?
Oh,
Yeah, and I completely agree. For the Chris Hardwick example I gave, he's a comedian first and foremost. So I mean, he's pretty good at engaging the audience and all that. But with his podcast, he brings in a bunch of celebrities or a bunch of like people of notoriety, and they themselves have a pretty good track record of being able to present a good interview or
Hmm.
engage the audience on their own. But no, I completely agree. I think it takes a specific personality to be able to be the host of a podcast, and I think it's mostly just listening, to be honest.
Right. Okay. So, because this is all a sort of a guiding light for me, because you guys listen to a bunch of them, and I am confident. I feel confident that I can be a good host. Um, but like, another thing that it's dependent on from what you guys are saying, like inviting guests, I really have to use discretion on who I invite. Because when I made that thread, like, hey, is anyone down to be in this podcast? Everyone and their mom's like, oh, I got something to say, you know? Like, everyone's like, hey, let me on. When I don't really know what their expertise is in, there are only very few people I notice, like, oh, they're probably an expert in something, and I would want them on. When the podcast is about like getting good and self mastery and self improvement, um, or whatever people interpret it to be, um, I just feel like I just need to use my discretion and not just let anyone on here, you know. Even though you don't have to necessarily be great at something or good at something to talk about the process of getting good.
yeah, funnily enough, I actually saw that post too, and I know what you mean. And this isn't to put them down or anything. It's I do think a lot of people, without them realizing, they have a talent that is not known to the public.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like the fact that they don't know they have that talent is exactly why they may not be suitable to be on the podcast, for instance. But I saw that post and I didn't want to be like another one of those like people that commented on it.
Uh-huh.
So I just, wanted to say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like
Yeah.
I hope to, like I hope to be able to tune into it,
Right.
uh, to some place that's accessible. And look, funnily enough, I'm one of the people here, so
Yeah, that's actually
that's
pretty
pretty
funny.
ironic.
Like, how did that happen? How did you learn about it, or how did I get? I feel like I invited you at some point, but I don't remember when or why.
Okay, so I think it's because you were asking me about the accessibility. Like, where is it that you or that I listen to
Oh, right,
podcasts?
right.
Yeah, because I think I mentioned in there somewhere in the comments that I listen to them pretty frequently.
Uh-huh.
So obviously you see that as value, right?
Yeah,
And
I
you,
think that's valuable because it's like you've already told me like the idea was that I want to know what makes a podcast good, and so you just up and say you're not telling me I want to be a part of it. You're saying, oh, I listened to a bunch of them, and to me that's more valuable than someone saying, oh, I want to be a part of it. You know, because I don't know
yeah,
what they have to offer.
yeah, exactly. You don't really know any inherent value that's like explicit, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of being superfluous with my own words right now, but
No, that's
to make it
that's fine.
short, like if you can offer some sort of value, whether that be like hidden or not, you know, if you're implying it, you're obviously going to want that person to be included, like, or at least give you feedback. You know, they're going to be involved with it more closely than someone that's just, oh, let me be a part of it, and then you know, you're not sure exactly what it is that they're good with. So
to piggyback off the value, can you hear me? I changed it to voice active.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just took
Probably
it
just stay a little close to the mic, I guess.
Okay. Anyway, to piggyback off of the providing value or whatever. One thing I noticed when I'm listening to podcasts is I really enjoy when the guests have a sort of passion for what they're talking about, or even when the hosts have passion in what their guests are talking about. It just makes them a lot more lively and fun. And it can kind of take mundane topics and make it like, oh man, I want to listen to this. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. Can't think of anything, but if I do come up with something, I'll bring it back up.
No, I actually, going off of what Cory said too, I totally agree with that, because you kind of want it to be a dance, you know? You don't want the guest to do, the host to do all of the work and then like have the guest basically dancing with two left feet, you know? Like you want both of them to have this kind of like flow with each other and really get to be engaging with the audience too, you know? Like the audience wants to listen, so you got to give them what they want, but you have to do it in a way that keeps them hooked.
That's a very cute imagery. I'm gonna imagine myself dancing with my guests every time now. Now I'm dancing with you boys right now. You know.
Ooh.
I like it.
So I mentioned that I approached Ivan earlier, but Cory, you were actually the one who approached me after seeing the post, and you said you had some like stuff you wanted to say. I don't know if you have them in notes or anything like that, or if you've said it already. Was there anything in particular like that you wanted to let me know?
No, I don't have any notes or anything like that. What caught my attention was the idea of getting good.
Right.
I first heard that phrase from the Dark Souls community. It just kind of stuck with me ever since I played that game whenever Dark Souls came out. It's almost kind of became, like, as cliche as it sounds, it almost kind of became like an almost mantra for myself of just whenever you fail at something or whenever things aren't going your way, it's just you gotta get good. Just you gotta keep moving forward, and you gotta figure out why you weren't doing something correctly and what you could do to get good.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful concept. I mean, the reason I called this podcast Getting Good is because I've sort of adopted, I guess, as a mantra too, or just like a motto for life. In my head, I always tell myself the secret to life is getting good. Like a lot of times people make excuses. There's a lot of mental acrobatics people do to make excuses, to tell themselves I'll never get to a certain point, to tell themselves I can't do something, and it makes them give up before they even try. Like a lot of those things can be addressed just by this sort of abstract idea of getting good and what it means. And I feel like what I want to do with the podcast is just talk to a bunch of people with different skills or different life journeys and how they achieved what they did and what they can do to continue to improve, and through that, like, learn what I can do to improve myself. And this podcast in particular that we're doing right now is how can I get good at making a podcast, you know? And I feel like with every single episode that I do, and I'm hoping it can be a lot, is like constantly using that process. Because I feel like being excellent at a skill, being a master of any skill, is a process, and some people might see it as a series of wins and losses, a series of successes and failures. But I trust like a learning process, and I think to me that is getting good. That is my interpretation of it. But other people might have different interpretations, and I would love to hear that. You know.
Yeah, so I think I actually really like that name, Getting Good or Get Good. Just that like motto in general. I also think that the way it's done can be a little off-putting for like the beginner type, you know? Because just the phrase "get good," I think there needs to be something added to it, because I think what a lot of people have in their heads is that once you get good, once you get to a certain level, you're okay. but that's not really the case. You want to keep going forward, I would say getting better would probably be a little bit, more accurate, but
it's not as catchy.
I think it's not as catchy though. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But for sure, like what a lot of people don't realize is that, in my opinion, the beginning is probably the most fun of it all, because when you like really treasure the present moment, like that moment that you're in, just the beginning, actually, I think you should be treasuring every stage, right? Because every stage that you're in offers like some kind of development that you didn't have previously, or you might not get like at the next stage. So you might as well just take advantage of all the resources and like the connections that you're making, and like just roll with it, keep going. Because I think the problem too that a lot of people have, that you mentioned mental acrobatics or mental gymnastics or whatever. Basically, a lot of people, or I would say not a lot of people, but there are some people that they think of life, or they think of their goals, just the goals, right? And they don't really treasure like the moments, like the path that it took to get to that goal. And then once they get to that goal, it doesn't even feel as good as the journey itself. So I think people need to treasure the journey more.
Yeah.
Sorry, well, go ahead.
Especially the losses. I think people don't treasure losing or failing, and they consider that like a roadblock to success. And this is a theme that has been tackled in a lot of stories, especially in movies and anime and whatever else. We all experience it in life, the idea of losing and failing, and I think that's something I want to emphasize in each person's story. Especially if I talk about my own too. And I like what you said about like the beginning being the fun part, because right now, right, this is the very first podcast. My heart is like beating fast. Like I'm a little nervous that what if this isn't good? Even if it's the first time, I shouldn't be worried about it. But I still have that sort of tension in my heart. Like, how is this going to be received? Is this a good test run? Stuff like that. And I think diving into this whole podcasting thing is going to be a fun journey, because I've met you guys through the Super Smash Brothers community, right? And some of the first people I'm going to interview, like I want to do an episode with TOs, and I want to do an episode with the strongest melee players in our region. Those are like the first groups that I have queued up. And it's the Smash community, but I want to talk to other people like artists, athletes, whoever else is like interested from listening to the content too, because I'm sure there's people who are going to listen to it and be like, oh, I want to be a part of it. And maybe there will be a point where I'm like starved of quality guests, so I might just let some random person on. But I feel like that's my responsibility as a host, right? Like, can I siphon value out of someone who might not seem valuable? Because everyone's valuable, right? Everyone has something to provide.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to do that too, because sometimes you'll have a guest that's like a miss, like you said, right?
Yeah.
So I want to be ready for that too. So I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling, but I'm just thinking about the process of how this is going to go.
Yeah, I actually want to hear what Cory has to say on this.
No, I just think I like where your head is at for how you plan to accomplish this. Because the thing I'm thinking through is, even if this does turn out to be a bust and no one ends up watching it, you could still learn from it. I mean, it's the whole idea of getting good, right?
Yeah.
You're still learning from it. You're still gaining skills from your guests coming in. You personally can develop. And then if any viewers do happen to continue watching, the guy should be like pretending it's destined to fail already, but you get the idea. They can grow with it or whatever, and then ideally the more people who watch it, the more people get to grow, and then we as a community all get to grow together.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually something I've thought about, like the idea of no one watching, right? And I'm actually thankful for my experience as a streamer, because when you're growing on Twitch, you experience many hours of working and streaming with nobody watching, and you get used to that sort of lonesomeness. And I guess I never considered it lonesomeness, because I sort of have this like negative viewpoint. Like, not, I wouldn't call it a negative viewpoint. I think it's low expectations. I think streaming a lot on Twitch has helped me set that. Like, if one person listens to this, I will be satisfied. Just one. If 0 people listen to it, I'll be like, okay, that's fine. Maybe I can try again. But So I think 0 or 1 viewer. If I'm cool with that, I should be cool with anything moving forward. Obviously, I want more people to listen, so I want to increase the value of it. But if one person watches this, I can ask them, "Hey, how was it? What could I improve?" You know, and that's the whole process. That's the process of getting good. So I think the reason I brought you guys on is because I was looking for specifics, and because I trust that my process is gonna be okay. So if there's anything specific like I could be missing out on the idea of a podcast, like I still want to like flesh out my idea before fully diving in. You know.
So I think your mentality is pretty good.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say that, well, like, who cares if it does flop or not? Because at the end of the day, like, this is just such a small part of like your whole life that like in the long run, let's say you live to 80 years old, man. You're like 28 or something right
I'm
now. I'm
29.
not sure, 29. So what's this little, like, let's say 1 hour, 2 hour event gonna be like in the long run, man? Like, you might as well just like go with it, man. Like, just go with it, and like if people like it, cool. If they don't, like, whatever. Like, it's not like this really hurt me that bad. It's not like it actually chopped my arm off or something extreme, like you're still fine, you're still like healthy.
You'll never
you know
get this time back. I mean,
yeah, like, but even then, man, like, let's say no one watches this at first and you still want to keep going, like, it's still going to serve you, like, it's still going to serve the other guests too. Like, you're gaining skills in like conversating or
Yeah.
having a conversation, and like, I mean, I think you're already pretty good at that anyway, but
Oh, how sweet.
like, aw, no, no, you're already pretty good at having a conversation, but you could always be a little bit better too,
Yeah.
and you can always learn something from someone else. And just like you said, like, you never know what like little talent someone else might have, or sorry, not little talent, but hidden talent someone else might have that you could benefit off of it.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, just roll with it.
I hear that same justification for like going to church. Like it's just an hour, so might as well go.
That's true.
It's true, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of value to be given in church.
Yeah.
I'm not
Your
saying
five
that.
in Catholic just went up a little bit.
What was that?
I think your five in your Catholic skill tree went up a little bit.
Oh, nah. I'm just a sinner, guys. I'm just a sinner. Anyway,
Aren't we all?
yeah, exactly. But
I
anyway,
guess it depends on how you interpret sinning anyway, but
I
I don't know, man.
I think we all know what sin is.
Is it true?
Anyway, guys, I'm not really sure what to talk about next. Like,
I've got a question for you, actually.
yeah, sure.
So, do you plan on having a structure to these future podcasts, or do you plan on making it just fluid and kind of loosey-goosey, or what's your strategy?
A little of both. I always try to provide or try to give leeway, like we're doing now, for conversation, because conversation is really natural. Like if someone's a good conversationalist, I don't know the word for it, then it's just gonna flow naturally. So there shouldn't be much of an agenda. But in case like things start to slow down or have a lull, I have general questions in mind, or I could write down a general agenda, like with specific questions I would want to ask someone. Like the only question today was how do I get good at making a podcast? What makes a podcast good? And we can talk about like the theme itself, which we've been talking about, like getting good in general. But yeah, moving forward, the stories are going to be about specific things that people did in order to get good at what they're good at now. And the possibilities are endless. I could be talking to doctors. I could talk to college students, people from church, people from the Smash community, other artists. Those are the people like in my direct reach. And who knows if someone else is going to be interested and be like, "Hey, this is my skill. I want to talk to you about this." For example, already there was one person from the Smash community who commented on that thread, and he had like a Pikachu profile picture, and then he DM'd me. He Facebook PM me or DM me. And he told me he's also good at soccer. And I'm like, okay, I feel like maybe you're not a great Smash player, and you might want to talk about that, but you also play soccer, so I would want to ask you about that,
Yeah, play to their relative strengths, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's solid. Like, you kind of want to get that outside perspective too. Like, from someone that, let's say you know someone that plays Smash, it's always helpful to really get that person to talk about what else they're good at, because you'll start to see that they can connect the dots into the whole process of getting good or getting better anyway. So whether they know it or not, they kind of like have this subconscious, like, I guess, mentality that's more holistic to their whole improvement. Like they're applying things from something else that they're good at without them even realizing it.
Yeah, that's exactly true. I mean, you guys know me from, I was the best player in the region in like every Smash Brothers game for a while, and now it's not the case anymore because fortunately people got better than me. Because
I think you got old.
What?
I think you just got old.
Nah. You can be old and still good at Smash. Just play an easier, a less technical character, easier on the hands.
Your athletic fingers,
Jigs.
Yeah, Jigglypuff, Ice Climbers, Peach. You can still get good. But anyway, what was I saying? What was I saying?
You're saying the community grew and eventually overthrew you.
Right,
He was talking about how he was taking what he was learning from Smash, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, dude, like I played Smash competitively since 2004, so that's 14 years. Hardcore, at least until a couple years ago, when I was super hardcore. But that experience, the experiences, well, I learned that the most valuable thing in getting good at Smash was the learning process. That you go to a tournament, you get experience, you overcome your mentalities. There's so many obstacles you need to get over just to be even decent. Let alone like the hours and hours and hours of practice, which is another thing that people underrate. Like a lot of people think it's all mentality, when it's also your body and mastering like the practice, So depending on what the skill is, like if it's poker or chess, yeah, it's mostly in your brain. But if it's like, I don't know, surgery or melee or like art or like working out, like a lot of it is mastering your body and putting in the hours of practice. So there's a lot of different types of getting good. But the learning process from Smash, I applied to like relationships. I applied to studying. Well, not very well. I wasn't a very good student, but I applied to getting better at art, and I'm still applying those ideas every single day. Like making small improvements and stuff like that, washing the dishes or whatever.
Yeah, man. The more you do something that you're good at, the more you begin to like really connect every little aspect of your life together. It's actually pretty cool, but
yeah,
that's cool, man. That you're tying it into other areas of your life. I think that's how it should be, man. Like once you get really, really good at something, it's so much easier for you to be good at something else, or
exactly.
Be good at multiple things.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get good at podcasts. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah.
I think it's going pretty good, man. Like, I guess something else that I was gonna tell you. That's kind of what you were basically talking about earlier. You were talking about a basic structure, essentially, with asking questions in case there was like some quiet time or some awkwardness starting to build up. Basically, you want an outline, right? Like you want, like you said, basic questions to ask, or not basic questions, but specific questions to ask the individual on how they got better or how they got to a certain like level of competence, right? Yeah, so you basically kind of want to dictate like the conversation, but like you said, you want to have that like leeway, that extra like flow for the conversation, which I think you already discussed. So like I said earlier, it's kind of like a dance, man. Like it's, even though you may be the leader, like the leader still has to dance back. They still have to like really get led on by the audience as well, or not the audience, the guest, or whoever it is that they're like communicating with.
Yeah.
The leader leads by example, I guess, but the other people still have to kind of like still go with it. I don't know if I'm rambling now.
No, you're right. Like there's a danger.
That's the best advice I can give for the podcasting, at least.
Yeah. There's a danger there because if I lead too much,
do we lose Andre?
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm not sure.
Hello?
I was kind of waiting for him to add something back, so I was just like,
hello, can you hear me?
I was just kind of rambling on, I guess, on accident, because I was waiting for something, for him to say something back.
Yo, this is
Oh, hold
actually
on.
crazy.
They lost him.
We're troubleshooting from the very first episode.
Can you hear the cat at all? She's been
I can hear it, but
yeah.
Yo, actually, I'm pretty sure the audio capture can still hear me, but they can't hear me. So this is actually a great learning process for me.
That's
they will
funny,
hear
dude.
this later.
The first podcast or the
Yeah.
It's actually nuts.
podcast, I feel there's already a problem. Screw it, dude. Who cares?
All right, we're gonna overthrow his podcast. We're taking it over.
We're taking over, dude. We took the whole idea now, so
Damn.
this is gonna be our podcast from now on.
Welcome to Getting Good with Cory, Mercer, and Ivan.
Oh man.
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
All right, there we
okay.
go.
So if that happens, I was actually talking while you guys were talking too. That's actually hilarious. But yeah, so that's part of the process, right? We're troubleshooting, man.
We're getting good, right?
We're getting
We're
good.
getting good.
That's so funny. I wonder what I can do to prevent that, because that's really unfortunate that my mic randomly cut out.
Oh, it was your mic. Oh, okay.
Can you hear us though?
I can still hear you guys, yeah. So it was actually really
okay.
funny because I was like talking while you guys were talking. And I was like responding to Ivan, and I was like, oh, why is he interrupting me?
That's funny, man. That's what I was telling Cory. I was like, bro, I'm trying to like listen to, I'm trying to cue him in, but
yeah.
We're rambling.
That's hella funny. Okay, so anyway, I was responding. I was saying there's a danger there, right? Like there is a chance that I could be leading too much. Like I don't want to be the one building the narrative. I want to introduce like the potential of a story, but I want the guest to unleash the story, right? I don't want to just be the one creating it for them. So there is a danger of leading too much. Like the example you used of a dance, right? There was this time I was dancing with my fiance, and I'm not really great or experienced at doing partner dances and stuff, right? But I have a general idea of how to move her body and like spin her around and stuff. And one time I was doing pretty well, and then all of a sudden she did this crazy leg movement as part of the dance, and I was like, whoa, and it really surprised me, and it kind of threw me off. But it's like all I had to do was lead her at least a little well, and then she kind of just took over too. Like you said, they bring their own flair, you know?
Yeah. She brought those mind games, bro.
That's what it was. She got the mix-ups.
Yeah, it was the mix-up, man.
I got mixed up.
Pretty good.
Dang. So what, did she two-stock you then, or what?
I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Like a lot of times people make those analogies, like a Smash analogy. Like there's actually something crazy that happened. I will never forget this moment. So I have a friend who passed away, right, a couple years ago. But a little bit before that, we were at a wedding together, and I was like really stressed out about relationship problems, and I'll never forget this, especially because he passed away, right? So a lot of the things he said to me really ring true in my heart. He told me I was having relationship problems, right? And he's also from the fighting game community, and he put his arm around me. He's like, "Yo, sometimes, Dre, it's not about the matchup, but it's about mastering your character." And I was like, damn!
Damn, that's true.
It was so true. He put relationships for me through the frame of reference of fighting games, and it just made so much more sense after that day. And I'll never forget that. So
yeah, man.
What we're talking about is true. Like you take skills from another thing you practice and apply it to something else. And even if it's abstract, it can still apply.
Yep.
You've been practicing footsies ever since.
Dude, yeah. Footsies are real in relationships, man.
Dang,
sometimes you gotta bait them in.
Bro.
I can talk about this in another episode.
That definitely has potential.
That's the cool thing about
dating?
podcasts, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dating too. But the cool thing about podcasts is that, like, we mention little things like that, man. Like, and then the audience, like the listener, let's say, is like, oh man, like he should do a podcast just on relationships, or like how's it like on this specific like little thing, this little detail that we were just talking about, and like that really gets them hooked, and like gets more interaction. That's what you want. You want like that interaction with the audience as well, not just with the guest or I guess yourself, but Yeah. You want to get that like. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I feel like I have a tendency to interrupt. I need to be patient, like you said. Joe Rogan, very patient. I need to wait.
Well, he's patient, but at the same time, like I kind of meant patience in the way that sometimes his guests are really misinformed about something, and
Oh,
he's like, yeah, like he's
he
much
lets them
more,
talk.
yeah, he lets them talk, but he questions them and has a patience for, I guess I would say ignorance, right?
Hmm.
Because the guests may feel that they're really knowledgeable on something, but Joe Rogan may question like their facts or their beliefs enough to the point of having the guests like still keep firing off the same ideas that they still believe in strongly, which may
Yeah.
not be the case, but basically he just has a lot of patience for stupid people or
Okay.
stupid ideas, not people, but I would say that ideas may be stupid.
Okay. That is a solid strength to have. That's actually something I think that I have. I think I am a fairly tolerant person. Especially a lot of people in the Smash community have seen this from me. That there are some really there are people in the Smash community that other people find annoying, but I don't find them annoying. And you guys can leave that to your interpretation. You guys can probably think of some people already that that applies to, but I think I'm okay with talking to anyone. Shout outs to all my homies in the Smash community. So I think that's a strength that I have. So I should. I'm hoping I can have the patience. But if there's someone that pushes me to the brink, I think I will learn from that. I don't know. I haven't experienced that in a long time. But there might be someone like that. Who knows?
Real quick, I want to say I think I found what it is, exactly what you're talking about. So it's responding versus reacting, right? Reacting is when you go off of like base emotion, and it's kind of like, I guess, animalistic if you wish to call it that. But responding is where you take a step back and you're like a little more patient to think before you speak or act. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what I really meant. I guess that's kind of like what Joe Rogan would do.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally get what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
I actually don't really hate anyone or find anyone like super annoying in the Smash community. There's like maybe like two people that I don't like, and I'm talking about like the local, like the local
Yeah.
scene. I guess that would kind of like leave room for interpretation to who those two people may be, man. But
You got everyone listening right now is guessing like, oh shit, does Ivan hate me? Oh man, I
for
don't
real,
know.
nah, even hate is still a strong word. There's two people that I guess dislike, but
Is it
that's
me?
about it, man. Nah,
Okay, cool. I'm safe.
I'll make it
nah,
easy. I
man.
dislike all of you.
No, yeah. Okay. Anyways, I think we've pretty much covered it. I don't want this to drag on too long and just be superfluous, just dialogue about nothing. We have
Yeah,
talked about, making a podcast and the types of people I want to invite, what I can do to make it good. I don't know. Is there anything missing? I think we can probably cut it now. Not really have a climactic conclusion or anything, but I think what Joe Rogan does. Like he does straight up 3 hours, and then he says, "Oh, we're out of time." You know, which is
yeah,
crazy.
that's true.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
it is not hard once you get a conversation rolling to talk for that long.
yeah, man. I mean, when it's very engaging, like time goes by really quickly. But
Yeah, it does.
I'll just say, like, next time if I'm ever like on a podcast with you, like again,
Hmm.
I think I need to chill out a little bit too, because sometimes I ramble on. And let's say, like, for example, Corey, I think I was kind of like talking too much, and I think he could have like talked a little more. So, I guess that's getting good for both of us. We learned something
But
I
through this
think,
podcast itself. So,
go ahead, Corey.
as I say, I think that's mostly just it's difficult to have a three-person conversation in real life, first off,
Hmm.
but also over internet.
Hmm.
It's you are missing those social cues of like watching someone move and watching someone actually like physically communicate.
Yeah, yeah, like eye
I think
contact and
it's
stuff like that.
difficult.
true.
Yeah, exactly. Like eye contact is something I use all the time when I'm talking to groups of people.
Yeah,
That's
like yeah,
true,
of
man.
course, ideally, I would want my podcast to be IRL, but if I can do it online, I just want to do it online.
No, exactly. It's so convenient.
Yeah,
If I were you, though, I would limit it to one-on-one. I mean, unless you have like a group thing or.
okay, because the ones I've queued up are groups. So, but I will keep that in mind that I could and should do a one-on-one podcast in the future.
if I were you, I mean, granted, this doesn't mean I'm right. If you have a group, I would try to make sure that they are like close friends, like they really understand, like they talk to each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That way, they can kind of help self-govern themselves with their dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I agree right there, actually. So I was actually gonna make a reference to the Adonyx podcast, like again. So there's two hosts, or there's a host and a co-host, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they know each other pretty well, but they occasionally have some guests come in, and I think a 3-person podcast. Well, I mean, I guess 2-person, like a host and a co-host could work well, and then have that extra person come in. But like Cory said, if you want a group or like basically more than one person come in on your podcast, you want them to know each other really well to kind of govern within themselves,
Yeah.
That's all, I guess. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that. So
I didn't even think about the idea of a co-host. That's actually nutty. What an idea.
I would search up the Adonyx podcast on iTunes, man. I think it's all about fitness basically, but if you want to get an idea of how smooth and like natural should go, listen to like the more recent ones. They have a pretty good like flow to them. So
yeah, I should check that out. I should listen to more to absorb it if I'm gonna try to get good at this.
Yeah, put it into practice.
Yeah,
take the information you get and put it into practice.
Suddenly I'm thinking about like TV radio shows, because that's basically what a podcast is. It's just a new name and a new method of distribution for a radio show. That it doesn't always. A podcast is basically you don't want to listen to it live. You want to listen to it on demand whenever you want.
Yep.
With a given topic, you have a control over the radio you listen to. But like, like back in the day, the one example I'm thinking of from the past is like Howard Stern, right? Very provocative, racy radio show, but it was broadcasted on TV later, and he brought in some wild guests and doing wild things, and it was probably really entertaining. Yeah. So that's like I didn't even realize that that's what this has become now. That has evolved into a podcast.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of that either. Yeah. Right now I'm just picturing the Andre Stern show.
Andre Stern show.
What if I get some interesting guests on here? Interesting. That's also.
I hope you get interesting guests.
You mean like the 209 starter pack or what?
I mean like a special kind of interesting. I like to make things implicit. That's one of my mottos in conversation. I think things are funnier when you make them implicit and not explicit. So I like leaving things to people's imagination. Yeah.
I think that's definitely a good trait.
Yeah, I agree, man.
Yeah.
Hey, well, actually, I think I'm gonna have to go. So
yeah. Anyways, I think we're pretty much done. Cory, any final words? Ivan, you guys have anything else left to say?
No, I'm good personally. Yeah, I think you got some good ideas, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the podcast.
All right, sweet, man. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Peace out, man. Yeah. Thank you, man.
All right, later, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye. So, I'm gonna hang up, and I'm still in the Discord call, and you guys are still seeing this sort of post recording thing. But yeah, I want you guys to let me know, those of you who have listened to this or watch this even, give me some feedback. What are your ideas on what makes a podcast good? And hopefully I'm going to ask them like who are like for links to the podcast that they recommended, so I can maybe link them down below. But you guys should check out on YouTube the Joe Rogan podcast, which is like high key the inspiration for me to try to start doing this. Joe Rogan, very casual, but really knows how to lead a conversation with interesting people. So I'm really happy I talked to these guys. See you guys later. That's it for now. Peace.